1 AM yesterday morning, we got a call from the resident saying that she had vibrations and loud noise she could hear in the house. When we came to the property, saw steam venting under pressure from the lip of the bank and subsequent boiling and mud had been ejected from the site, so this is happening now. What we have in the area, is a fault line that runs along this bank behind us, and every now and then we get a flow of heat, comes from the south, from the village direction, works its way along this fault line and comes to the surface. It's normally heat and steam, so this event is a bit unusual in that we have the ejector being thrown out, and it's a lot better than normal. At the moment we are just letting it take its course. The resident has been moved out of the house for precaution, and we've fenced off up top there just to stop people coming too close, because the risk of ground collapse is quite high up there at the moment.
Aspect of living in Rotorua. My concern when I heard of it last night was to say, don't go down to look at it, because you think you're very safe here, but trust GNS and Peter and our expertise about the coding of the area, and don't go over them to have a look, because while it might be a curiosity, it's also extremely dangerous for us to cross boundaries and have a look. So that
This is legitimately the freakiest thing I've ever seen. It's boiling mud. It's like a different planet. Like there's some right there.
Yeah, mud.
Planet mud. Where the mud boils. It's just like tiny explosions. And it's very smelly. They said it's anywhere from 60 to 80 degrees Celsius and gets as hot as 100 degrees Celsius. So basically, if you fall in, it's bad news. And it's gross.
Hello guys, I just wanted to make a video on Starfort, but then people started messaging me. Hello guys, people started messaging me about that video the Wise Up made, and it's called why it's not correct to call it a mud flood. Well, I started to watch it around and I stopped at around 10 minutes because I didn't have enough time to watch it throughout. But you know, I don't think that he's talking about the same event that I'm talking about. He's talking about the Great Flood. The Great Flood, that mythical event that was depicted and kept covered in the Bible, in the Old Testament, so-called Noah flood. Well, at least that is not what I'm talking about, right? So he might not even call anything else mud flood anymore. Like you said, I'm not gonna use the mud flood term anymore.
During the Great Flood, it would have set off all the volcanoes, mainly superheated ash, volcanic eruptions. And there was probably that much of it that as the waters drained off, it was a thick soup which seemed to cover all these sites, which then had a thick layer of mud rock over them, because it would turn into mud rock, as well as, during those superheated ash eruptions, they petrified, turned everything into ash. And a few videos back, it wasn't welcomed at the time, but since that, researchers that are into this mud flood scene have seem to have accepted what I have mentioned there, and I am leaning that way more and more than information I have put out myself. Look, everything I've said about petrification is completely correct, and you know, underground cities, everything with above ground, all that is correct, but I've thought that everything has been laid down from the Great Flood. All this mud and sand, everything being buried has been put down by the Great Flood. And as time's moved on, it looks to me now like 80% of what we're looking at is actually ash, which is obviously mud, and it's got vegetation that's since grown on it. That is indeed what we are looking at, people, and that's why areas are completely level, right? And it will have been that thick in the ocean. As the water's drained off, it will have got thicker and thicker. It will have ended up like a soup, and then it just layered on top of all these sites, which will have already have been taken out by superheated ash and petrified in the same way, kind of, at Sodom and Gomorrah, and that's what this video is about. And that is where I am going to be moving, in the direction that I will move in. I will never mention the term mud flood again.
And stuff like this, so it's okay with me. You wise up, you can do it. Yes, you can, like Obama said. But my mud flood happened in the mud flood I try to cover happened in 19th century, and that's why it's very important to understand it, that it is correct, because we see the clay and mud everywhere, and we see in the 19th century buildings, 18th century buildings, 17th century buildings that are covered with the thick layer of soil, mud and clay. And that's what we can observe right now. This is not just pointing something into the screen, being a couch expert. You know, I'm not that type of guy, because I'd like to walk around, I like to film stuff. Although I have some videos with pictures and, you know, some slideshows and presentations. I'm not saying I'm the greatest, you know. I like to have a live chats, I like to show my face, I like to be what I am. I called my channel Philipp Druzhinin because I am Philipp Druzhinin. I didn't have any pseudonym or nickname which could be covering the real person, right? So instead of dumbing down people or wising up them, as most of the channels prefer, I try to just stick to who I am, and it was always my personal blog, and that's why I created the Mudflood Advanced Research channel, just to expand on Mudflood advanced information. And I'm not trying to mock anyone or embarrass or ridicule people, only if they step on my territory. I'm trying to hype on my research. Although Wise Up didn't do that, he tried to hype on the tag, on the keyword mudflood. That's why I respond to this, because people have sent me all those links, multiple links, saying, look, he's totally on something. The ash. Well, ash doesn't fit in the reality that I can observe on those buildings that I'm researching, on that event of 19th century that I tried to stick to. Because, you know, as I've said before many times, and it's not just blah 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 blah, we have to research what we can actually research, not just, you know, speculate. And if we cannot research the event that happened 200 years ago, what can we research? What can we research, people? We cannot research anything. And you know, it's been a while since I uploaded my last one, because I'm on vacation. I'm still on vacation. I had to split my vacation in 2 parts because too many uploads of my main channels that I do on my work, because I got a bunch of channels, you know, and most of them have a lot more views than I do. It's not because I suck, it's because of new algorithm that YouTube promoted in April. And if you didn't know that, you might as well check out the Bloomberg and read about it. But whatever, you, the viewers, all those 300 Spartans that left as my subscribers and totally support me from the day one, all you that, you know, subscribe to my Instagram know that I have a bunch of pictures that I upload, a bunch of photos, images, and my Instagram and Facebook page. So if you want to be in more closer touch to what I do right now, just, you know, subscribe to those sources. The links are in the channel page and in the description of this video. Well, okay, and let's go to the video itself. Why I think the ash doesn't fit in the reality. I'm gonna be doing it right now, so stick around. Maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow I'm gonna be uploading more facts on mining, the connection of mining and the mud volcanoes, and the event that we could have, you know, and we did call the mud flood. You know, I'm not pulling a blanket on me. I'm just saying I stick to the 19th century and the closer period, the period when, why the 19th century? Because it all adds up, and a connection, the dots are connected to the 19th century. It all leads to the 19th century. All the stuff that we have right now were invented, so-called invented, in the 19th century. The Great Tartarian Empire was destroyed in the 19th century. All the history was edited and rewritten in the 19th century, people. And it's not just observing some maps or, you know, checking out some pictures. It's gonna be real comparison, the comparison method of scientific research. I hope it's gonna be like that, but, you know, it's up to you to judge and decide whether I'm correct or not. So, in my opinion, ash doesn't fit in anything. Volcanic ash doesn't fit in anything. So stick around, people. It's coming up next. Yo, 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 yo. I'm in the mud volcano here. Yeah, check out for my new video on my channel pretty much soon. Thanks a lot for following. See you later, guys. Bye.
Nuclear explosion puts out a gas well blaze. This gas well fire roared out of control at one of the natural gas deposits in this country. The giant torch consumed nearly 10 million cubic meters of valuable fuel a day. A full-scale battle was launched against the roaring inferno. First, an attempt was made to cool off the near shaft area by water. Jets of water cut off the flame from the gas stream. Then, part of the gas was diverted with the help of a structure erected over the well. Here, gas is being burned at draw-offs. But it proved utterly impossible to lower piping into the well to bring it under control. There was a sudden pressure surge in the well, and gas started to leak out into permeable geological strata. Dangerous amounts of hydrogen sulfide began to escape. This created a threat of air contamination over a big populated area. Attempts to plug the well by conventional means have all failed. Then, it was decided to choke the well by a contained underground nuclear explosion. When project materials were ready, a special drilling rig was set up nearby. This was used to sink a deep shaft at an angle to the gas well. A nuclear explosion was to be set off in plastic geological material below gas-impermeable strata. When the emplacement of the charge was over, the shaft was plugged with concrete. Preparations for the blast are nearing completion. Machines and equipment have all been moved to safety, 5 kilometers away from the zero area. Now the flame and the nuclear charge are left alone, face to face. The explosion is only seconds away. The camera feels the impact of the detonation. And the gas flame begins to subside. Let us now take a look at what has actually happened deep down below. The shockwave of the explosion compressed the surrounding geological material and pushed it aside, blocking the flow of gas. The well was plugged by crushed rock. It took only 23 seconds to do the job. A radiation survey of the area failed to detect any activity. An unusual quiet has set in. Soon, the dead well was filled in with earth. A contained underground nuclear explosion has helped to save large quantities of valuable gas for our national economy.
I could see the smoke about 30 miles away. It's a pretty big fire.
So if you guys think the technology changed, not at all. About 20 years passed and they're still putting down the fire with the water hose, with this pressure of water. They're trying to put the fire down. And this is USA, guys, 1998. The clip before was USSR. We're gonna return to that area. Check this footage out. Miners ain't always screwing around, guys. Sometimes they just, having fun with those constructions and the equipment that they have. And it's even looking funny for most of us because, this is not the job that we want. It's a hard job, man. But this is dangerous equipment, and if you leave it, if you sue it unsafe, if you leave it just like this, maybe some kids can find it, or some evil guys, or maybe even maniacs or terrorists can find it, like this abandoned well in Russia that was found by some person, and it looks nothing interesting at all for a walking by person, but for those who know what it is, it's a dangerous weapon. As we saw before, it can cause huge destruction, huge fires, and can't even be stopped only with some explosive or nuclear weapons. And I've been talking about it for several years, the connection of mining and the mud flood. And probably today I'm gonna be finishing this topic because I'm sick and tired of different questions about what's the cause of the mud flood, what's the cause of the mud flood, what's the cause of the mud flood. Yes, the cause of the mud flood is mining and unsafe precautions. Now, to build a commercial gas well, you have to make something like a star fort, because it's the angular shape, which is very effective and efficient for fracking gas or oil, whatever. So that's why we see so many star forts in the area where the gas is mined right now. Also, we see many lakes and rivers near those wells, and we see some strange defense lines, as they call it, but really it's nothing else than the pipelines, the connections between the stations, between the wells. Right now it's called the defensive lines in Ukraine, in Russia, probably many other places. But what the gas was mined for? The gas was mined for the commercial purposes, like using it in France. We see so many gas lamps in France, in Paris. This is all 19th century pictures, guys. So we were using gas, and in many other cities, I think. Just we have to check it out, and you will find out that it is true. So all those Starfort lines ain't nothing but stations, the gas well stations. Some of them had reservoirs, some of them had wells, and some of them had, the distribution. And many of those are in Russia. Right now Russia is one of the biggest gas importer in the world. Exporter in the world, or whatever. We produce as much gas as Europe can easily consume. We even, send this gas to China and America when it's very cold and they cannot, afford to buy their own gas, which they do, fracking. They do fracking a lot in the United States, a lot, and Great Britain has a lot of fracking. Norway has a lot of fracking. So The fracking technology is expanding, and all those starfall shapes probably were gas lines before. This is modern technology. The compensation curves, so the gas lines won't be blowing up. And this is how it looks like now at those places where we have star forts on the maps, on the ancient maps of Russia, Ukraine, which was Russia, of course, before. And now it's called defense line. Just like that. So believe in history? You still believe in it. You're wrong. Go in those places and you'll find out that people still mining gas there. In most of them. So ancients were using gas for production, for enforcing of the, whatever production they have. They also used it for heating. And we still find on the maps that we have the reserves of the gas in those areas. And we have a war in Ukraine for the gas pipeline. They demand Russia to stop building the Nord Stream, also to supply the Europe with the gas. So nothing new under the sun, right? I always wondered why we call small towns and villages in Russia and Ukraine and Kuban, Krasnodar district, where I'm right now, located right now during my vacation. Why do we call it Stanitsa? Because Stanitsa is station, and I've been talking about it. And here's this nuclear blast site where they tried to put down the fire with the nuclear destruction. Nuclear underground explosion. We can see it right now. It has a look of a huge crater filled with water. And this is famous Pennsylvania fire on the Chevron gas well. Also has some type of star fort shape, as you can see. This star fort shape is for the protection, first of all, and they could be using it for protection from wild animals, from invaders, and from the local people. Who knows? So oil and gas production doesn't always fuck up with fires. It can even, strike out with the mud, because they drilling and the mud's still coming out of those drill holes. This is one of the largest mud spills, which was caused by the big oil. It's from Indonesia. And people, even trying to pray to stop it, but they can't. Oil companies, reject any, responsibility for this. They're trying to hide it. People praying God for this stuff to happen, stuff to stop. Trying to research the area, how they can do it. journalists come, bloggers come. This is how it looks right now. All the area is filled with mud. And this is not the only case in Indonesia. We have a bunch of them. And they all possibly were done by the oil companies, oil and gas production.
This is a satellite image of Parang, Indonesia in 2004. This is that same place in 2008. What happened in between those two photos wasn't an earthquake or a typhoon. It was one of the most mysterious natural disasters in memory. And actually, it might not have been natural at all. On May 29, 2006, vast quantities of mud began bubbling up out of a gas and oil field in Parang. The flow blossomed into a full-on mud volcano, which is actually a scientific term. It might not sound as scary as a volcano spewing lava, but the mud spread quickly and disastrously, completely overwhelming 12 separate villages in the area and displacing tens of thousands of people. Now, there are a few very important things to say about this event, which is called the Lapindo Mud Flow, or Lucy for short. Firstly, it's the largest mud volcano in the world. At its peak output, Lucy exuded 180,000 cubic meters of mud every day, which is enough to fill about 75 Olympic swimming pools. Secondly, it's still very much active, almost 10 years after the first eruption. No one knows how long the mud will keep flowing, but many experts predict another 2 decades worth. Faced with that prognosis, locals in the area are doing their best to live alongside Lucy. They've built levees to keep the mud out of populated areas, and with few other industries available for work, some have turned to a form of tourism. It's not huge business, but lots of Indonesians are curious to see firsthand what they'd heard about in the media.
I had watched a lot of the news on television, but I didn't expect that seeing it with my own eyes could give such a different impression, as I imagine about 13 villages underneath the mud, and it's still bursting. If this is called tourism, I suppose this is tragic tourism.
There's one other thing about the Lucy disaster that still has people up in arms. No one's quite sure whether people are to blame for it. 2 days before the eruption, a 6.3 magnitude earthquake struck the region, and initially, experts believed that to be the trigger for the mud flow. But other studies have since argued that the blame lies with the oil and gas drilling at the site of the eruption. Courts in Indonesia have ruled that the gas company, Lapindo Brantas, was not at fault, though the company has still paid out millions in compensation to the community. They've also tried and failed to plug up the mud flow. One exasperated engineer described the volcano as being simply impossible to kill.
So what I'm trying to say, guys, that mining and mud volcanoes could be connected, and this is where we have to research more and where the specialists can join us, because worldwide we have mud volcanoes everywhere. In the area where I'm located right now, it's like we have like around 20 mild mud volcanoes, which are not like very dangerous, and I'm even gonna show some footage from this point. But you have to realize, but the mud is coming with the pressure and could be really fast and dangerous, as the oil spill or the gas spill, which can be put down and could be put down only with the nuclear or explosives, stuff like this, right? And after this event, everything could be buried with the mud, which can be drying out and turning into some clay type of structure, which we observe right now in all the cities like Moscow, St. Petersburg, and many more. And that's why we don't have any trees, because, you know, most of the trees could be, you know, destroyed. Think about it. By the way, write me in the comments whether you stick to the ash theory or the mining, which is obviously could be the cause of all the mud volcanoes, so-called volcanoes. You know, I'm not buying the word volcanoes. I'm just, you know, trying to stick to official terminology so everybody could understand that is all connected. And there's nothing new under the sun. We've been mining since the day one, you know, and I have made a bunch of videos about mining, different things, metals, you know. So like the byproducts of mining could be even the so-called concrete, you know, which could be used to produce different blocks and stuff like this. Even the Great Pyramids complex in Giza looks to be like a chemical plant, and could be a mining site. Why not? Mining. They mined and they sealed those wells after they are done. And that's what we have today. We can see pretty much the same, guys. So all this relative, and as a comparison with the ancient stuff and the modern stuff, could be, you know, even a scientific theory. Why not? So think about it. Write me in the comments, what do you think about it? Either you still sticking to something else, or you stick to mining just like I do. This is probably the main cause of what could be the mud flood reason, right? Because all those cities have star forts, and we know it. Hey people, yeah, today I was on a mud volcano. It's not a big one, but you can see the difference between the wet mud and the dry mud is very big. The color is changing due to the oxidation and drying of the mud. There's some little sources, little streams of those mud volcanoes here. Most of this mud is flowing out of this stream towards this huge bath, whatever you call it. Most of this mud looks like some patterns or waves or something. Let's go to the big ones. There's a bunch of rocks here, so it's hard to walk. Probably even erupts from time to time, as you can see. Most of it is dry. Another one here. Very warm one. You know, I'm standing on a very hot one here. Very hot one. See, it's boiling here. So a bunch of exits here. Everything is boiling here underneath. So this is how it's forming, all this mountain, all this hill. It's about a mile high from the sea level, and this is how it's formed. And so this is not ash, this is what comes from underground. It's just the mud. Mud and clay, which it becomes after the eruption. I hope you hear that. Well, anyways, thanks a lot for watching, guys. See you later. Bye.